Welcome to our YouTube video series on employment law. My name is Christopher Neufeld of Neufeld Legal, and in this particular video we will be discussing the aspect of workplace bullying. So bullying, to start off with, is viewed as either engaging in acts or verbal comments that are designed to either mentally hurt or isolate a person in the workplace. It can involve physical contact, but does not require physical contact. Most often, it is done simply through words, gestures, comments, even emails and other communications that one receives in their workplace, on the job, or tied to their job. Oftentimes, it might be someone from their job sending out communications, making phone calls, even during non-working hours. And most often, it is tied to a pattern of behavior from that particular individual that is intended to intimidate, offend, degrade, or humiliate an individual, or sometimes even a group of individuals within the workplace. And it is either known or should be known to that perpetrator that their actions, their words, their conduct, their comments are inappropriate and are designed or serving to induce a hostile work environment that is hurting others, isolating others, making others feel uncomfortable. So we do need to be careful at the same time that we're not over-perceiving bullying in the workplace, because especially with older employers, managers, and supervisors, they might have a different perception as to how their management and their supervisory work is to be engaged. Whereas newer, younger people might not be naturally inclined towards that type of management supervision. So there is at times a fine line that flows between one and the other. Nevertheless, even with that distinction between the two, it is where it is taken beyond that, where it is misappropriated, that it is used excessively, that we can find even strong management styles where they become excessive. Even though a party might think they're doing things right, it can transcend from strong management to bullying in the workplace. And it is for that reason that people need to understand and develop an idea of what they're dealing with, how they might deal with it, where their lines of communication need to be to address the situation appropriately so as not to receive negative feedback that impacts their ability to perform their job, and if they desire to continue in their employment, because it is a problematic thing that, if not addressed and addressed correctly, can fester and build, especially where it is addressed inaccurately or inappropriately, or in a manner that one may think is perfectly legitimate. It could have repercussions. As such, it's necessary to take a more thoughtful approach oftentimes to situations where one might find workplace bullying, that one deals appropriately with their HR, their human resources people, and even seeks out outside counsel as to how best to deal with a particular situation. Because you cannot let these situations continue and fester and grow, because the person who is effectuating the bullying, especially in those situations where they might well believe it's a strong management practice as to how they interact, by addressing it without cognizance and inaccurately, and even if it is appropriate to address it in the way you feel, might set off that person and in turn create a very problematic dynamic that causes far greater problems for the individual, and could even see the individual who is taking a, let us say, a strong management, a strong supervisory style. And when they get reprimanded and they are attempted to be put in place for what they felt was just trying to get the most out of yourself or trying to get the most out of the workplace, will then feel like it's time for retribution. The thing is, oftentimes once they've been pushed back on it, the retribution might not be as clear as one would think. The supervisors and managers and employers got to that role because they are not stupid. And they might not take the retribution out on yourself directly or in a manner that can be traced back to them, such that you find yourself in an ever worsening situation, whereas that individual might well persist in their negative treatment of yourself, and that negative treatment might ever grow more intense. Yet it is done in such a way that it does not track back to them or does not show back on them, such that if you subsequently, after taking this original position against the individual, is able to say, look, I learned my lesson months ago, years ago, and I toned up my whole approach. There is nothing I have done outwardly recognizable that shows that I have continued to create a hostile work environment, that I've continued to bully the individual. But at the same time, there are subtle ways, quiet ways, that they might well intimidate you, harass you, challenge your ability to make yourself successful in your continuing pursuits of employment with that particular employer, such that you need to be cognizant of this at the outset and find ways to appropriately address these matters, such that your individual approach might not necessarily be the most advantageous to you in the long run. In the short term, it might be, but you have to consider all aspects in this. And you have to consider the importance of your long-term well-being and the ability to address this in a manner such that workplace bullying, when it does arise, can be tackled, but it is tackled in a manner that does not negatively impact you for years to come. So it's a very delicate situation in some respects. It needs to be addressed, but it needs to be addressed correctly, appropriately, and oftentimes with the right human resources people, and even at times with the right outside professionals and legal counsel who can work with yourself and make sure that you moving forward are appropriately protected in your employment status, your employment situation, and your personal well-being is secured. So, as with most things, very challenging, heavily dependent on the facts and the circumstances, the situation, and what has transpired, and what you need to do to succeed in the long term going forward. So I trust you found this YouTube video informative, and I recognize that as I start to discuss concerns with how you address it, it may well feel like it devolves a bit, but the thing is, each of these instances are so particular in how they need to be addressed that you need to give lots of consideration and work with the right people so that you don't hastily react. I'm not saying you're going to overreact. I'm saying hastily react in such a manner that it jeopardizes your employment, which is not the key concern, but your mental well-being, your physical well-being, and your overall sense of self. Because workplace bullying is a very serious problem, but it does not necessarily have straightforward answers for addressing it. So, take that to heart. Look at taking an advantageous and appropriate route to best protect yourself, secure yourself, and deal with workplace bullying. Thank you.